A very warm welcome to you all. Today at the Terra Torrents, a dialogue series, we warmly welcome Professor Urjani Chakravarty, who is currently an assistant professor in the Department of Humanities and Liberal Arts, specializing in business communication at the Indian Institute of Management, Bodh, Gaya. Professor Chakravarty is also an aviation English trainer for Airport Authority of India. Professor Chakravarty is an accomplished scholar, educator, and administrator with over 9 years of experience working in multidisciplinary academic environments like AP, IIIT, IIT RAM, and IIMs across India. With a PhD in humanities and social sciences, her publication profile reflects her core research specialization in linguistics, interfacing with communication, culture, digital media, tourism, and generation studies. Her deep understanding of linguistics, digital media, and communication theories are invaluable in exploring how communication shapes our understanding and response to climate change and other environmental challenges that is currently faced by our planet. Professor Chakravarty's participation promises to enrich our conversations with innovative approaches to communicating environmental issues, engaging the public and community, and influencing change in education, industrial, and social context as well. With those words, I am delighted to welcome you to our session today. So, welcome.
Uh, good morning, Paulami. Thank you for such a good introduction and all the best to your organization. It's really a privilege to be here and discuss on a very relevant topic like climate in the current scenario.
Thank you so much, Professor Chakravarty. So, with those words, I would like to move on to our discussion that we have for today, which is basically on climate change and other environmental issues that are the main focuses, and how your expertise and can help in doing something about it. So, for the first themes that we have for today's about communicating climate change and environmental issues. So, I would quickly like to start off with a question that how can principles of communication be effectively applied to communicate the urgency of climate change in current scenario?
Uh, Very good question. Actually, when it comes to communication, it's everywhere, and it's since the time that somebody takes their first step, they are also learning to communicate. Now, there are some theories, and especially since you are focusing on the principles, there are some theories which directly relates to the concept of comprehension and understanding. So, when we come to climate issues and challenges that are being faced, one perspective that I can bring in here is that how people will actually understand those issues as issues. So, a theory that is called as relevance theory talks about it's a theory of communication and cognition. It actually talks about how people get the meaning of things, and it has a very strong base in anthropological studies. So what it entails is when you are telling people generally about something, they may or may not understand it until and unless you have some clues imbibed in somewhere in the message that becomes relevant for them. So the key word that the theory talks about is optimal relevance. And for any communication to be relevant for someone who is the discourse recipient, the discourse initiator must have that clue somewhere, embedded in the message. So I think this perspective is very important to enhance the understanding of the issues. Because majorly when we come to, and I'll come to our own country, of course, because talking about anywhere else doesn't work, that in our country it is, we see that trees are being cut, people are littering everywhere, but even with the messages, I think it only reaches 10%. And there is a big gap in that optimal relevance, that when, until unless you tell all that why is it relevant that you should not litter or you should not cut a tree, that portion must be kind of, thought about.
So that is a very interesting point that you have brought up, and I'm pretty sure in their own ways the other conversations we had with the other participants, everybody brought this thing in their own context. Like there is a disconnect between nature and people, and then there needs to be a connection between, say, in terms of languages, in terms of context. In scientific terms, we want to localize the issues to the people themselves. In my field of environment and climate science, what we do is we bring it, the context of a flood happening in Africa, or a drought happening in African nation might not be relatable to people in India. So we have to bring those concepts into their own local levels, and how that is done is somewhat you explained by this relevance theory. So probably communication has a big role to play in creating that channel, that platform where the information passes through, to make that disconnect disappear and bring in a connect between the issues that are long standing and with the people. So
Mhm.
that is something to think about. And moving on to the next question that I have for you is about, somewhat this is relevant to the thing you said, that about influencing environmental policy. So what role can communication strategies play in influencing environmental policy and decision making at various levels? And with that, I want to add that because I had conversations on this topic with other speakers who was talking about bringing in their own languages, that if it is spoken in their own languages to the people, those policies, they will be more closer to their heart. I had a talk with a person working with conservation. So they also said the communities have to understand on their own levels. So languages, making it relatable, making it relevant for them is understandable. And how can these communication, what specific strategies can communication have for this purpose, if you would like to say?
Again, an interesting perspective that, I'm again bringing in the concept of relevance theories, because basically I am a relevance theorist. This is a pragmatic theory which talks about communication and how meanings are generated. So, one strategy that is very important. So, people, when they're talking about language, uh, relevance theory goes beyond that and it talks about the message. So it can be any language, it need not be just words, it can be visuals, it can be colors, it can be whatever. So my research also talks about colors and visuals. So one term that is being used by the proponents of this theory is called as epistemic vigilance. Now I'll just explain this to you, that what strategy that means that, um, when you're being informed, when you're being given a message, you should be able to tell that how much of the message is not just relevant but true and factual.
Makes sense.
So when you have a situation like this, that something is happening somewhere, uh, you should be like, just like removing the dirt or removing the grass or removing what is relevant, you keep that message in place, and you are always vigilant about the information being given. And I know this will sound a little different, or maybe from other speakers, that it starts from the family, the whole epistemic vigilance, because I said that this is right from the beginning. When you are 3 year old and you are learning the language, you are actually learning to understand and interpret messages that are coming to you. So some people are more oral, some people are visual, some people are combined together. So I think this is a big challenge for a young nation like ours, where families should start very young with this epistemic vigilance, that this strategy should be started off very young, and everybody should understand that, okay, fine, there is a blue sky, there is a green field or something, but what is the purpose of that, and how a concrete jungle is opposing the whole survival of your species. So that's the kind of strategy that I can talk about. It's very basic, it's very very simplistic, but then simplistic things are the ones that take shape properly at a later date.
Actually, the thing that you are saying about epistemic vigilance is I'm surprised that most of the other speakers and wherever we are going to the climate strategies, the environmental strategies, everybody is talking about this in their own ways. It might be for scientific people, like for the scientists, there might be the scientific accuracy word coming in. For other people, it might be okay, you have to start from the community level. So, indigenous communities and like we are not really an old, like India is not really an old new nation. It is actually has a long like a huge traditional resource of information, because it is like a very old nation it is. So we already have those values somewhere hidden or maybe forgotten. This was also told by many people that we have those within us already. So we have to bring those back up, those information, that okay, this is the purpose of the environment. Each and every organism within the environment, within the nature, serves a purpose, so we respect it for them. And this information is has to be maybe we have along the line forgotten about this and not adhering to those principles. We just think whatever is apparent that has value. But in ecology, there's a term known as ecological services. So those services are not really, does not have a monetary value per se. It might not be, but they are also calculated, and those monetary values are unimaginable. The ecosystem services provided by a small like a bunch of trees in a within a urban setup has is huge. So it gives a shade, it gives it gives housing to so many organisms. So those things, if you can change it into monetary benefit, it will become like a huge something in terms of in terms of it is very relevant actually. So what we have to understand is that these informations, these little tiny pockets of knowledge that are hidden in the natural world and within the communities, these have to be transferred, as you say, from a like a really young age to bring that connect to nature. So thank you for bringing this point up. And now I would move on to the third question, that is the about digital media and environmental advocacy. So you also have a expertise in this field. So I would like to ask you that in your experience, how has digital media transformed the way environmental issues, climate issues are communicated and perceived?
I'll give you a very interesting example here. Um, so we have a lot of vloggers right now, and as someone who studies their behavior, studies their vlogs through like years and years now, almost from 2016 onwards, uh, there is a unique trend in vlogging in India, again coming in the context of India, that um, village life, village cooking, uh, village perspective, survival of everyone, how to survive in nature, um, cook in nature, basically a lifestyle in nature, which is like, going back to your roots. So this is something that is being constantly practiced and is being appreciated by the viewers. We see all these vloggers, I'm not going to name them because it's not important, but the purpose here is that they are creating greenery, they are trying to bring back the natural indigenous plants and food items. So there is one example I would like to say, that in India we had like, instead of chili, the Portuguese brought chili and they culturally enriched us, of course, but there was something called as muijal or something. Correct me if I'm wrong. Somebody might correct me in the videos later on, maybe. That that's just a bark, which was actually used as a spice in the Eastern India. Now this slowly got, like, out of practice, but now currently people have started using it again in food items. It is easily available, it's a bark, it helps in the natural environment to remain as it should be, and all of these tiny things. And I'm just talking about one tiny example, but there might be so many different examples like this, which the digital media, because you see the visual thing has a bigger impact.
Hmm.
It is optimally relevant, and visually also you become more vigilant, because if it is a fake information, if there is something fake, you catch it much more easily if it is visually given instead of words. So that's like how our cognition is geared. So I think digital media has a very, very important role to play in this.
That is like excellently put, that we are bringing back whatever that may be just a trend for them, but for the betterment of the environment and the society in general, this is going in the positive direction. I feel it so myself, seeing so many people all around the world who are not related to really climate science or environment talking about these issues. Many of them just might be jumping on the bandwagon because it's the hot topic of the day, but something can be taken away from this as well. If, like, the in the earlier question you said the accuracy needs to be checked and the it has to be maintained, so if there's a way to correct the simplify, first of all, simplify the information to what the people can perceive, and then this information has to be again scientifically backed, like it has to have some sort of an accuracy, and then when it goes on to the masses, this is going to be a like a huge positive impact in the right direction. So
Mhm.
thank you for talking about that. And now moving on to the next part of our uh, session, talking about teaching environmental responsibility, which you already brought up in earlier uh, parts, that how do you integrate topics of sustainability and environmental responsibility in your communication courses? Or I mean, like, do you do it, or is there a way you can do it in the future perhaps?
So I teach one course that is called as critical thinking, and critical thinking allows you to kind of uh, see what is happening around the world very, very logically, and discern what is right and what is not right. So there is such a lot of information overload that students, they need to understand that uh, this information, I am getting it for free, maybe for some purpose, but what is that purpose? So I think that is one way of looking at sustainability, because you see, generally talking about principles of sustainability will not work until unless, like in my first point that I stated, that people don't find it relevant for themselves. So critical thinking makes the younger generation aware that, okay, how is it going to help me, and what is the condition if I am saving water, or if I am not using extra paper, then how is it that it will help me? That one drop can make that ocean. They need to understand that one drop is very, very relevant for them too. So that is how we do it in our, like, courses, not directly by talking about environment, but actually understanding what are these issues like, why is it an issue. First you have to logically think, why is it an issue? So
True, that is very well said. That in our own ways that we can put those issues in front of the people to make them understand. Okay, this is the thing, and there's the other thing also. Like, people are these days, about when there are talks on climate change, on environmental issues, anything. Everyone likes to say, "Oh, the big corporations are doing is these are they are the main things." What if I just switch off one light or just save like a few bottles of water? What difference that it made? But I always say this in my research as well, that we are like over like 8 billion people in this world. And then, if even 10% of us do something, the message goes through. It will might not be a change on a global scale, but it will be a change on a micro scale. It will change your own microclimate, the community that you are staying in. So there will be a change. So we have to understand that, and we have to make other people aware of that as well. So that is something interesting to know. I hope that you can in your courses in the future as well, your team will be incorporating, because this will be a need, a necessity in the future, to have these issues such as sustainability, or not just as a term, but as something to be imbibed within.
Mhm.
These issues related to nature and climate will be there in the courses as well. Now, moving on towards the aspect of business and sustainable practices. So, as you teach business communication, I would like to ask you about this as well. What communication strategies do you suggest for businesses to effectively convey their commitment to sustainable practices and also perhaps adhere to them? Is there something you could say about that?
See, for the time being, see, we are an education institute. So, education institute is like we are sending off people who are now a little more aware of about the environment, about sustainability, about being mindful. That is our core value. Our institute holds that value of mindfulness. The idea here is that uh, once these students they join, what are they doing as one step towards supporting? The policy might be in place. All organizations nowadays have these policies, but are the people following them? Are the people actually implementing them? So I see my students all the time doing the tiny bit for their own earth. And um, I may or may not remember all of that, but all of these projects that we have, summer projects and some of these extra trainings that they do, they're constantly thinking about how to do that, take that one step towards a better world. So I think that is how it works. That policies are of course in place, organizations are already following those policies, but each one of the members, once they see, this is also like a peer thing, so if one is doing, then the other will be doing that, and it becomes a movement in general. So recently I heard, of course they were not part of my group, but they were trying to uh, make people aware that bore wells actually destroy riverbeds and the water level of a space, and they're trying to do it in places, small places like in and around both Gaya and all. So that kind of heartens you, gives you hope that yes, something, we know that these are all small steps. The organizations are already following that. Bigger steps will happen maybe in 10 years, 20 years, that will be like, or 30 years, but the small steps are happening right now. So that's the possibility that businesses created by human beings, students in particular, yes, they are taking those steps and they are making the difference that is required.
That is like really wonderful to hear that people are doing their own bits. And I, because I've been working in this field for a long time, what I also suggest people is don't do something, just see, okay, this is happening and climate action. So we are going on this, taking these banners and doing this activism. Not everyone needs to do that. You can stay in your own corner of the world. You can just be what you are, do what you are best at, and see in that way, in your field of expertise, in whatever way you can, how can you send, relay that message to the other people also, and do your little bit. Every bit will count. It might not
Mhm.
count on a global level, but it will on a
Mm.
regional level, local level, and we go deeper into mesoscale level, microscale scale levels. So when
Mm.
everybody does their bit on their own level, there will be a domino effect, and it will ultimately lead to something good. Because steps for these environmental issues, climate issues, are not as uh, difficult as it is made out to be. You, if you do some certain steps in your own areas, everyone can make a difference. And we have to realize that it is not lost. There's still hope.
Mm.
And moving on from there, I would also like to go a little bit different to perspective into public perception and climate action. So now, how can these effective communication shifts that we have been discussing so far sh- um, shift public perception and encourage proactive climate action?
Yeah, so like I said, I'll start with the message again. That message itself is very important, and bringing in optimal relevance through the message. How do we do it? What are the ways that we do it? So, one part of my study is that you know there's supposed to be information and there is supposed to be entertainment. So when relevance theory is talking about information, it's fine, we are all processing the information, but what is happening when there is entertainment for people? What happens in entertainment? So there are people, scholars like Stromberg and on, who says that entertainment should not be seen as something for pleasure. It is actually enhanced awareness, and this enhanced awareness, I think, is the key for changing the perception of people uh, with the kind of message that they will enjoy. So I'll just give you a very simple example. So why some of these vloggers are very, very successful? And in my research, I found that so they want to show that they are from the village. So what are the key colors that they are using for entertainment? So the key colors that they are using is green for all their backgrounds, for all their places. There is a thatched roof. There is a there is a pond, in that old form of pond in front of them, which is called as a dighi or something in local language. And it makes it very interesting that they are creating the enhanced awareness for somebody who is maybe not aware, and there are viewers all over the world who enjoys that. So I think that is what will help us for policy making, that how do you create a message that entertains, but entertains with that enhanced awareness. So that's I think is one way of going about it.
That is actually very well put, because there's that entertainment. If some people are constantly thinking of these issues, oh, this is like such a dark topic, I don't want to go to the end of the day and read about climate change and environmental issue. I have had a really tough day, and I would rather have watched something fun. But here is where people are working on this. I had a lovely conversation during our series, which is going to come up in the next few days, that about using festivals like nature festivals and other creative engagements
We
for
actually have that.
big
We
and
actually have that in our country. We have a lot of such festivals. When we say Holi, when we say Diwali, when we have this what is it called as Halloween in another part, it's all related to the climate change.
seasonal.
Change in environment, change in weather. It is being celebrated in a certain way. So if we go to that core message, maybe we can do something. Yeah.
Yes, there's Ugadi, there's Karma in Jharkhand that is celebrated in India, there's Sarhul festival. These are all harvesting festivals. So these festivals are very like community based, specific to communities. These gentlemen who is somewhat of a musician and then a creative person, he wants to inculcate the values of puppet shows and these music, like music and poetry reading, and incorporate them into the as functions, and then go do it all over the world to send the message, instead of just serious talks about, okay, this is happening and we are like 4 degrees above the average temperature. That is, the heat waves is going on in India right now, all over the world as well. And so instead of the serious talk, to make it more fun but relatable too, and this will help in engagement, will creating engagement from like youth as well. Little kids will be happy to sing those songs, and when those songs hit you, you will
Mm.
understand, okay, the actual message. So that is something it's nice to hear that this is the thought that you also are having. Now, moving on to the last few questions that I have for you. You talked about critical thinking in environmental discourse. I would like to ask you, how important is the role of critical thinking in understanding and discussing these environmental issues, and also something about the role of humor. So, if you could like just go one after the other.
Okay, critical thinking versus humor, maybe I can put it like that. One part is where you are completely aware when you are judging, but with certain conditions in place. You are not really judging to criticize, but you are judging to assess and understand. The better judge you are, the better decision making you will be making. Like, this is wrong, this is right. You will know it from there. You will know what is an opinion and how something is a fact. So as a critical thinker, you'll be able to understand facts as, okay, this is a fact. And then there are, so I feel that this is very important, because related to climate change, related to how these issues are being portrayed, some part of it is totally not factual sometimes. So critical thinking can help someone to kind of discard all those things which are not factual, which might be just an opinion, might be shared through some other reasons. So anyone who is listening to it, anyone who is understanding the message, should see that, okay, no, this is not the only thing. It has to be thought about and then acted upon. So that part critical thinking helps in. If I come to humor, so it's not about jokes, it's not about that. Humor is something that I think what we are missing in this world these days is acceptability, tolerance. So humor helps in that part of it, where you see a difference and where you see a different step being taken, or something that you're being practicing. So like I said, that this whole concept of littering the, so why was it acceptable at a certain point of time in our country that people can litter all around? Because the space was huge, the cities were almost empty. People would come up in the morning and the evening, and they will clean the place up, and then you can litter again, because there was no other place to go in a city. In a village, generally the whole process was very very different. So when the cities became so crowded and all, we see this behavior. This is like, it can be irritating for some, but it is also that, why is it being done? Why is it that people litter? Why is it that people are taking up steps like, all over the place, that you see these residential areas with um, this? So I think humor plays a very important role. Instead of intolerance, instead of getting upset about it, what can we do as a positive step? What are the ways that we can do? So the humor is that, okay, fine, somebody has littered, so you clean it up. You clean it up. It's not necessary that somebody else will do it for you. It's like a self-aware behavior. You don't really have to depend on someone. That dependency that we have created through the ages need not be there. And see the stark difference in countries in other parts of Asia and in India, that this is a stark difference, that people think that somebody else will do it. That should not be the case, because at one point of time, if you are littering, then you will be cleaning it up too. So there might be that you're very busy, everything else. So humor is that, in that sense, that seeing a problem, but seeing that problem in such a way that, what can I do for it? What is the aspect of, so taking things, there is also a very interesting concept, equal to humor. It's from Western Africa. It has nothing to do with our culture, but it's called as itutu. So everything that, so in case of you know awareness, in case of doing something, or in case of seeing things that are against the whole, instead of just like you said, that carrying up a banner or standing up with a banner, does it help? Or is it much better to pick up the thing and then throw it in a dustbin? What is that thing? So it's basically between react to a situation to respond. So humor will help you to respond to a situation as it is required and keep your cool, which is also very important. You see, uh, these are very so because the reason I brought this up in humor is because some of us are constantly facing anxiety, environment anxiety, climate issues anxiety. We are all facing it, and since the pandemic, I think it has even increased much more. So humor will help you to be a more aware yet calm person to do something instead of just being anxious about the world around you, that I am trying but I'm not able to do much. I tell my students that, you cannot get angry at people, you cannot blame people that this is their habit and this is how they are doing this. You cannot do that. You have to respond to it, that what is the cause of it. Nobody really takes up a bad step, or nobody really litters, or nobody really, what is the cause of it? One place I kind of was cleaning on my own, and I was cleaning it on, like, and I realized that why people are littering is because far and wide there are no dustbins. There is nothing to throw the things at, so they are naturally littering. So you have to see that you are responding to the situation, not react that people are just littering. So you have to keep that in mind. So our railway stations, our places, is the thing available, accessible to everyone, that can they see it and can they throw? So that part is very important. So if you get on a train, you find that where is the dustbin? You have to go all the way at the end, and there would be a tiny place which is already full. So where do you throw? You throw it on the track, and your tracks are dirty. But you should have dustbins. So humor in this sense, that you respond and you do not react. That is the difference. I hope I have made myself clear.
That is like a lot to think about, especially you covered two aspects. One was the critical thinking one, and other is the humor in this situation. So, critical thinking is where we have to be very wise of what is happening, of the issues, and make ourselves aware. Okay, this is the thing is that is happening, and how do we respond to it, whether it is factual or whether it is not really something that is true. So we have to be aware of that as well. That is where the educational institution, the scientific research scientists like us, where we come in. So we can like be the conduit where we channelize the information in a way which is relatable to all everyone who's along the chain. It can be educators, it can be young learners, it can be the community as a whole. So our role is cut out for that. It's already we are aware of that there. And yes, humor is important to like understand these situations. But there are two things. So if you see about, you are talking about littering, it happens more often than not. India is one of the most polluted countries in the world, and it happens everywhere else also. So littering is more of a localized environmental issue, but it has a like a huge impact, because this litter are whatever, especially these non-biodegradable items are burnt, and then they go into the atmosphere and create like noxious gases along with GHGs and all that. So it's there. But the perception, the humor has to be also on the other end. It is not just because, yes, as activist, I have been telling this over and over again. Yes, I know the issues, and it also gives me anxiety. I have been talking to other people who are working in the same field, and we have these terms: eco anxiety, climate anxiety, environmental anxiety. This is there. And this is very relevant to those who actually know of the issues. If I know there is a sixth mass scale extinction happening in this world, and then there are so many living beings other than humans getting dying, they will not see another day. So that gives us anxiety, being the scientist who has worked, means like they know about these situations. So there's that. And but the humor, where it comes in, okay, this is happening, how we can relate, but then there has to be a tolerance on both levels. So the message we are relating to the other party, say, so they may not know about their lives, just maybe the community's life is just earning their living, feeding their children, getting watching some videos somewhere, and then
Mm,
starting the other day again. And
mm,
they have those very specific tasks. They are not thinking about the broader issues
mm.
or the broader impact they have on the world. So there would be, if there would be some way to use that humor in telling them, okay, this is the impact you are having on this world, without being a really hardcore activist, because everybody we know that even though I am in the field of environment and climate for like more than 15 years now, but I also will sometime, if somebody tells me, okay, you should not do this immediately, and then with the like a sort of the activism way, people will not like it at all. You have to go on their own levels. But if repeatedly you say, if somebody is doing it, you pick it up. And there are movies in India. In India, there was a very famous movie that had shown this concept. If you keep somebody's littering, if you keep doing it for 5 days, then people will stop. But what if happen if you keep doing it for 40 years and still they are doing the same thing? Where do you make a change in that way? Because you are doing it, but the rest of the world is
Yes,
not.
yes, yes. I agree. I agree to this. Actually, humor, there is another way. Like I said, that I'm still right from the beginning. My one thread is the message. So there are messages and forms of messages that are very important. One is, of course, the meme. Meme is a culture thing, but meme is also something that can act as a very strong message. With the colors, with the message put together, the multimodal aspect of it. So, if the people who are aware, they can create messages which are with humor, and humor that, and I'm not even targeting a certain age group. Since I work in generation studies, I know there is a certain age group where you can actually target. The younger you target, the better you will get the effect. So that, and meme culture is a very famous thing to practice. If you start selling, and we saw this very successful campaign from the government of India back in during the pandemic. They started using memes to uh, encourage people to do certain things. So maybe that is one way of doing it. It's again a very simplistic way, but the message is finally what changes the world. So maybe that message with humor. So you have to keep that part where people can find the humor, and you can also add that part where people understand the stark reality that is behind that message. So both should have a perfect combination. Yeah.
So we already have about this humor and memes, cartoons, and say these things like nature festival. There are already people on the ground who are working. There's one very famous cartoonist who's represent the green humor column in Hindustan,
Hmm.
in or I don't know, the Hindu, actually, the Hindu. There's a paper that is in published in India, and there's a gentleman known as Rohan Chakravarty, who is like a very famous cartoonist who has also went to the COP28 in Dubai, and then he was the official cartoonist there. So he represents the realities of extinction. About mostly he works with biodiversity and with those funny snippets of cartoon, and that somehow relates to people also. I do not know how much of a difference it's going to be, I mean, it'll make on in the field where the actual extinction is happening or the actual crisis is, but it somewhat sends the message in a much less heavy way.
No,
It is
the
like,
issue that, like I said, I'm taking a very basic level issue, a very local level issue, that is littering. So maybe that is one that can be handled. And like I said, one issue at a time
yeah.
to reach to the global level. So maybe that one can be that.
So, yes, using those examples of already existing cartoonists, that what they are doing, and then now that you have such nice tools on the like, we can
Hmm.
use those tools like AI tools are available where you can create images and create, entertaining um posters or some sort of a message without to work too much. So we have to use those AI for social good. There's everybody that is doing that, and use those in this year. This is an actually a very interesting example, or a like a simple strategy that you have suggested, which might work very well in this situation. So thank you for doing that. And I believe you have also worked in the with tourism studies, perhaps, and then I would like to ask one the last question about tourism study and environmental impacts. So, how can communication within the tourism industry or maybe outside of it help mitigate its environmental impact? And with that, I would also like to add, nowadays there is a lot of people who are working with this sustainable tourism, ecotourism, and to show that okay, this is we are practicing these sustainable methods of tourism, and then we are reducing the impact on the environment in general. Much of it might be greenwashing also, but do you have any thoughts that how communication field can relate to these tourism
So,
industry?
yeah, so a very good question actually. See, tourism is that we need tourism, of course. We need people to visit, come, and that's a very big revenue source. But also, when we see that the current scenario of how tourism works in India is that there might be some sustainable practices being followed through. I don't know, but um, generally we see large amount of people going touring places, going to remote areas. One of the biggest ones that I comes to mind is Sundarbans. So a lot of steps have been taken now to see that fine, you're going there, you are like taking part in, and we need the tourists. We need the tourists to maintain the place. Everything, every place is like that, but some amount of control should be there, and communication is the only way that I see where you can. So you people generally come under bigger groups. Actual tourism happens with tour groups and companies who are actually bringing these people from everywhere. I'm not just saying abroad, but everywhere. Even in domestic tourism is also very high in India. So places where like the lakes, the mountains, the sea beaches, everywhere, we have to be very aware that there should be a policy in place for everyone who is coming as a tourist, that you have to be aware, you have to follow the same rules that you will follow in your country. Just because it's a holiday, it's a vacation, doesn't mean that you. And we see it happening everywhere. When we visit any place, we see these rules being plainly stated. So tourists are guests, yes, atiti devo bhava, that is our concept in Indian tourism industry. But also the awareness to maintain the cultural integrity of the place, the sustainable practices of the place, to maintain where there are animals, where there are birds, migratory birds, etc., how they are being treated. All of these things should be at the policy level itself, not just at the level of, and it should be communicated strongly, maybe, because this is a lot who are very aware. They're coming here for a purpose. They're coming here to maybe learn, maybe experience. So that experience should not be marred, of course, but that experience should be an authentic one and should not be like any way negatively affecting the environment around the place. So that's a very important thing to maintain.
That is something interesting because there are places which are like eco-sensitive zones in biodiversity hotspots, and because nowadays the good and the bad of the social media being that people are getting aware of these hidden gems, you can say, that are in and across the world, and then people are going in thousands of numbers to these places, and then it might they not might adhere to the community rules. So each community, each sensitive zone have their own rules which they follow. And if they are not, if people are thronging there in like large groups, it is very difficult to maintain those rules, and that is actually affecting the uh, that those bring in a very much of a revenues generation, but it will not be long if the entire ecosystem or that
Yeah,
ecosystem is
true,
destroyed. So it will
true,
be
true.
very short lived if there are a lot of people going there. So maybe I feel somewhere where the suggestions you made about humor and the creating memes, and instead of big rule boards, it could be like multimodal meme boards that okay, if you do this, this will happen, and you should adhere to some rules. Along with there has to be some strictness. Again, I say if there we are people are very actively saying, okay, don't do this, don't do that. There is a stubbornness also comes from the other party, that why should we not do this? And we will do this just to take it as a challenge, because that is another aspect that comes in with the social media. People are just showing, pointing to boards and such, okay, this thing has not to be done, so I am doing this to get these views. So that is the negative aspect of it, and we have to think of ways to use this social media and trends in the
There should
positive.
be multi-layered ways actually. We cannot just think that, so communication never works at one level. Communication works at multiple levels. So it has to be multi-genre, multi-level message that needs to be sent, and it needs to be sent every time. You cannot just say that once this is done, then it is done. You
True.
have to keep doing it. It can be at one-on-one level, it can be at visual level, it can be multimodal. It has to be done again and again. Pick up a mic and shout it out if that is what you have to do, but that is the case of communication. You cannot just stop at one level, that I have once communicated so it will be done. That's not how it works.
That is perfectly true. And maybe you and your team and the other people who are working in this field of communication might band together. And for your own local areas, you can create these small examples that can be used as, shown to everyone else as, use cases. Okay, these people have done this, because examples have a visuals instead of just, the conversations we are having. Those actual examples will work so much more better to relay the message. Okay, this is the track that we are hoping for, and then we are doing this in our locality. Perhaps you can do it in your, and slowly this is how everything spreads in the positive direction as well. So, with those words, I would like to thank you so much for coming to our session today and giving this enlightening talk. And then Professor Urjani Chakravarty comes from the city of enlightenment, that is Bodh Gaya, which is also the birthplace of Buddhism. So for our international viewers, that is something interesting to look into. So I'm very grateful for you for joining us today for this enlightening session. Thank you so much, Dr.
Thank
Chakravarty.
you, thank you, thank you so much, Paula. It was a great chatting with you. Thank you. Bye
Thank
bye.